Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever time it is for you. I'm Cycle, and this is Let's Play Train Simulator. Well, I decided I'm going to go ahead and get this thing finished. I know I just did that last scenario, and I said I'm going to go do the next route next. I actually do realize there's a couple items I left out that I've already recorded. I actually recorded the Railfan scenarios for Cheyenne. They're going to be the next thing I show off after after I finish here on Riviera Line for right now. And I also did a little more research into the Riviera Line 50s DLC itself. All these other trains, the Castle Class, the Grange, and the 5700 Paignton, they come with the Riviera Line. So there are actually 5 trains that come with the Riviera Line. I'll talk about that more at a later time when I start driving these steam trains. But only 3 of them I think actually get used in scenarios, because either that or 2 of them are similar trains, just different models or something like that. I'm not sure. We'll go over that at a later time. We'll talk about that more later when I actually come back to the Riviera Line doing the steam version, steam exploration of it. But for right now, what I want to do is I want to finish off these little guys, number 2 and number 3. So we're going to start with the Class 35 today, the Class 52 next time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this all, these last 2 finished, so we don't have to worry about coming back to these particular engines right now. We're just going to get a little introduction to all the different diesel that used to run on this line. I may go back and get the DLC for each of these trains, which would cost me extra money, so naturally I kind of don't really want to, but I may do that. And if I do that, if you don't want to spend money on a game where you already have a bunch of DLC, that's, yes, good idea. And if I do that, I can come back and I can play those scenarios wherever routes they end up at some point in the future. So that's something I'd always consider doing, taking those trains to other routes, and possibly the same route. Don't know yet. So I'll look into those at a later time. But for the time being, I do want to get these 2 out of the way because I've already gave you the special long voyage there. The long voyage is done from Kingskerwell all the way to Exeter. That's the longest trip you can get on this line, barring any shunting duties before doing a run or something like that. So we're going to go ahead and do a couple shorter scenarios this time, a 55-minute scenario. It's kind of funny, the 55-minute scenario, 15 minutes shorter, but it's a little bit harder. And then we have a 30-minute scenario, which is apparently even harder than that. I'm intrigued. Let's see how hard this actually is. A 55-minute scenario, take me back home. Let's get in the cab of the Class 35 High Mech to get these passengers out of the rain and home. Starting at Exeter, you will be in charge of this passenger service to Alfred Paignton, making stops at each station on the way. And I'm going to start by giving you a tour of the Class 35, and I have the information up for that. Well, I'm still looking at the 42 information, but I have the Class 35 information up right now as I quickly scroll down the page, and I'm going to give you a tour of that train. Hopefully not as messy as the 42 tour, because I'm looking at the guide for everything is on that train, and except for a little bit of a back wall where the handbrake is. And by the way, I did find the handbrake. You might have seen it in the as I was going along on the 42. It was that red wheel, I believe, on the back wall. I went past it twice. I didn't even see it because I'm dumb. But I'm looking at the 35 controls, and this is a fairly easy layout. So I'm going to show you where everything is on this 35, and we're going to get going. We're going to see what we are doing in this scenario. I'll see you inside the scenario. Alright, here's a quick tour of the Class 35. This is actually a very simple train to get used to here because there's not very many controls. A little fewer than the previous one, and there's even fewer in the 52, so 52 is going to be even easier to get used to. But let's look at the Class 35 for right now. We're going to start with the train brake, which you know how the train brake works. It's the semicolon and the apostrophe. So there's up, there's down. So it goes up over to where this coffee stain is located. At least I assume that's what it is. It looks like a smooth brake, but I think there are little notches on it. It goes in about 5% notches, so it is still notched. That's a lot of notches though. So it has the look and feel of a smooth brake, but it is still notched. So keep that in mind when you're using it. You're going to have not going to take very long to get that brake fully applied. So you want to make sure you just apply a little tap if you only need a little tap and so on. There's another brake which I'm going to actually focus a little closer on this and bring up the other brake here. Up in the that thing in the upper left corner is the loco brake. So if we apply that using the square bracket going in the one direction, you're going to notice the red dial on the instrument to the right. Let's turn the instrument lights on, by the way, to make it easier to see. So if I apply that's not the local brake. If I apply the local brake, it moves in that direction. You notice the dial go up. So that brake is simulated, but the regular brake is not simulated at all on the dials here, which is unfortunate because not full simulation, but it is an older model, so I can understand it. So even though it's only like 2017-ish, still technically an older model compared to what you would get today and the high quality stuff you see today from some developers. So those are the two main breaks. There's a whole. Let's zoom out a little more again here. There is a horn somewhere here, right there. That's next to the what usually you would call the AWS reset, but in the days of in the area that we're in of trains, this is considered the ATC acknowledgement. So the something train, I think auto train control or something like that, or I'm not sure the exact what that means, but it's basically like the AWS today. So it's the same idea. I'm going to demonstrate that by moving the reverser, which is over on the far right over here. So I just highlighted that. I'm going to move that up. You're going to hear the horn, which doesn't seem to go away. But as soon as you push the acknowledgement key there, you hear a bell to say that yes, you've done a good thing, and it goes off. So now you can move the reverser freely, and you can do whatever you need to do with that. So that's taken care of now. Now, you're going to notice that there is the throttle is right next to the reverser, which seems to be naturally the case here. Since I have the brakes applied, I'm going to apply them even further to make sure. You can move the throttle, and you'll notice that that's how it goes up. So I now have it maximum applied, minimum, no application, and of course there's anywhere in the middle. Again, it looks smooth, but it does go in little indiscrete notches as you go. Very, very small notches, so you can easily go up and above what you want, or too low if you're lowering it. But I know there's several notches. We'll look at that as we drive. Last couple things, the wipers. And you can see the button over here on the far left turning on and off, so that's going to activate the wipers. They're still on, turn them off. So just in case you missed it, that's over here. The next thing is the sander, which is way up here on the top dial. So if I push that, you can see it going down. And let's look outside to see if there's any effect of the sander. Whoops, not like that, I'm not going to. So if I come over to outside the canopy, stay out of the canopy, let's see if I push the sander and anything happens here. No, you can't really see it. It's not something that's really simulated very often, but you would expect sand to come out if it's simulated. That's the thing that many developers do not simulate, so not much we can do about that. And now all of a sudden it's raining on here, which is... There we go. It started raining while I was outside, now I'm back on... Basically, it doesn't rain under the canopy, but that's kind of a weird setup there. There's an engine on-off button. If you push Z, that will turn the engine off. The button is located... That's one thing I have not completely confirmed yet. I think it's actually right over here. If I head over to this side, yeah, I can't use 8 very well. But basically right here, right in this area is the engine on-off button. So if I push that, that's not it. That's the throttle. Push that. Notice it just switches around. And now if I try to apply the throttle, you'll see nothing happens. So let's turn it back on. Simple operation in this train. While we're over here, let's look at the other controls. Here is the cab light. You'll notice I have the instrument lights still on, so that turns them on and off. Then we have the headlight switch, which I'm going to activate those as well. So those are the main controls. One last control, the handbrake. You hear a little squeak with it as well, so that's kind of a nice little effect. So we've got all the controls figured out. Let's go ahead and drive this thing, shall we? Good afternoon, driver. Welcome to the Class 35 High-Mech. We'll ignore the signals because they are right now. Starting at Exeter, you'll be in charge of this passenger service bound for Paignton, making stops at each station on the way. Please allow passengers to board here before departing. Roger. I've done that. Let's go ahead and, even though we're not going to really see them, just for realism purposes, I will turn on the instrument lights. And let's look outside the train and make sure our headlights are on, shall we? There we go. And actually, let's change our view here as well. Let's look outside before we start. And actually, I'm just going to stay with you as we follow this train coming into the platform. Nice little shot. So turn on the two main things we need to turn on, and we're otherwise good to go. Let's do the AWS, or the ATC reset, I should call it in this case. Get a reload. You're going to notice that we have the brake application is indeed going in steps here. So as I push the key, the brakes just keep going to whatever number they're going to go to. It's almost like bingo which one you land on. So, and there is a first app setting as well. There is a running setting, and then there's a release setting. So let's put the brakes back on for a second. And there we go. Let's get ourselves going out of the station. So leaving Exeter St. Thomas. Just listed as Exeter, but you can see the sign. It is still Exeter St. David's. So leaving Exeter St. David's. We are on our way to our first stop at Exeter St. Thomas. The line to Exminster and Horton and Exmouth and all them goes off to the left. And nowadays there's only 2 lines over there, but I can see there's a lot more than 2 lines on this version of DLC. Let's get the wipers on now that we're in the rain. 45 is our speed limit as we leave the station. This bridge looks a lot nicer on the current day route, as you might call it. So I'm going to stop the throttle between 50 and 55 because at that point we're going to need to get ready to stop anyway. So no need to keep the throttle on for the to try and get the 75. We're not going to get there and be able to stop safely, even with an emergency brake, I don't think. In fact, 50 is good enough. We're going to drop it right there. And we'll put on a small brake application of 20% at this point to start slowing us down. I am going to increase that as we get into the station, but I may have to release it again before we actually fully enter the platform, and that is fine. At this point, I will increase the brake application to 40. Again, just the bingo number I ended up on, that's basically what that is. We have 700 some miles at the end of the platform. It is dropping nicely, so we actually might just come to a stop right where we are. We don't need to even do anything. We're going to get to the 0 very quickly. I'll release it for a second so we can get to the end of the platform. Then I will reapply it. And that is the end of that first stop attempt. Arrival at Exeter St. Thomas. Leaving Exeter St. Thomas, we are on our way next to Exminster. This is one of the stations that was actually closed in 1964, but there has been a push recently as 2017, to try to have this station and another station along the way, which we're going to get to as we get to that area. Those 2 stations were attempted to be reopened. Unfortunately, in April 2020, the station was determined not to be a priority. A different station was allowed to reopen on the line instead. That particular station, I don't know if that station is actually on this route that we're taking, but yeah, it was we just know this station is not reopened, even that we're coming up to is still closed today, but there is a possibility it could reopen in the future, just not as of yet. Now, last scenario, you may remember I wasn't sure what those icons were, the one that's 7/10 of a mile away from us. Those are actually horn indicators. Those are whistle boards. As some sightings are joining us from the left. So they are whistle boards. The SW, I believe, stands for sound whistle. And in some of the scene scenarios, maybe all of them, I don't know, that come with the actual route, you can actually be penalized points off your score if you don't sound your horn within 100 meters of that sign. So if you sound slightly early, you can still be penalized, which doesn't seem fair. So as I get above 70, I'm going to ease back the throttle. In fact, I'm going to start easing it back a little right now. Now, we're not going to get penalized in these scenarios if we miss them, but we're still going to try and do it realistically, as if it was the 50s right now. You notice it goes from 88 to 100, so the last 12 is all one notch there on the percentage. Okay, let's ease the throttle back as we are getting into the 70s now. And our stop is only a couple minutes away anyway, so there's no point really trying to keep the speed going fully. Now you may notice a wee bit of lag here and there. I'm going to go ahead and leave that for right now because I'm placing these before some other scenarios that also have lag. But I am going to in the future go ahead and try and do something to adjust settings on my PC to see if it actually allows me to smooth out the gameplay even more. I do have a high-end gaming PC. I'm running on 24 gigs of RAM, so this 64-bit train simulator is running absolutely no problem because it needs 16 gigs, and I'm obviously supplying more than I need. Typically, any computer, if you have more than 16, that's more than you're ever going to need. But since I have 24, I'm going to actually see if I can use some of that for the purposes of the Windows page file to see if I can get the quality of my gameplay to not stutter and be a better quality product for you guys. And I'm going to see how that works, and I don't know how it's going to work. I haven't tested it at all yet, but we're going to see how it works and see if I can get rid of this leg. There may still be some leg here and there even with that. Nothing I can do. It's just how gaming works, unfortunately. There's always going to be legs somewhere. So I've idled the throttle because we are at 75. We're going to have to hit the brakes soon anyway. So I'm going to put on the first step application in a... Well, actually, not yet. But now I will. Let's get start lowering the brakes. I will move it to a service application when we get to now. 30% for now is good. So it's not dropping us very much, but it is going to increase the amount that we brake per mile as we get to the station, closer to the station. So we are going to be slowly increasing that brake. And now we're getting too close, so I'm going to increase it even more. Yeah, our brake was coming off nicely. This is around the speed I wanted to be coming into the platform. So we have about 1/10 of a mile to work with. I'm going to actually release the brakes for a moment and just reapply them at a smaller setting. I want to actually keep the speed, get some speed back on there. We can stop anytime in the platform now, so I'm going to just let the train come to a stop on its own. We do have lots of time to make this stop. So welcome for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, to our stop at Exminster. And we see a train coming in here, so I'm just going to stay with you as we watch that train come in. I'll try to get a quick shot of the station before we actually leave as well. So the train has come to a stop. And as we do, let's take a very quick look outside once it does so. Leaving Exminster Station, our next stop is Starcross. You can see the sidings over on the side. Let's get the proper names of those. Whoopsie, not like that, I won't. Let's get the proper names of those sidings for you as I center on where I am. You can find out that those sidings are in fact called the Exminster down loop sidings and others, and we're going to actually be using these sidings, so we're going to actually be coming up here in our last scenario of this pack, so get ready to come to Exminster siding 1 in the last scenario. I'll show you that when we get to that scenario. You see we're starting a water trowel right now. That is coming up shortly. You're going to see an indicator in the middle of the track where that is. Not between the tracks like you see now, but in the middle of the track. It is clearly not there yet. This is something steam engines will use to lower the scoop and get water on the go. You can see the trowel has started. And it is on both tracks that you have this trowel. So that trowel is there. So steam engines can now lower the scoop, get some water in the tank if they're low on water. And if they don't need water, they don't have to do anything. But if they don't do it here, they're not going to get another chance on this route. So it ends right there. They have to lift before then, otherwise the scoop would break off. And if the scoop breaks off and you're on a long drive, you kind of have to make a water stop that you didn't plan to make. So it's a little embarrassing if you lose the scoop. I might have missed a horn there, but we do have a couple more coming up, so we're going to get another chance to do that. We've gone ahead and out the throttle at this point. After the experience at the last station, I'm going to increase the time I allow for my brakes because I want to make sure I'm not feeling like I have to adjust my brakes coming in. So I'm going to do the small brake application a little slightly earlier, and then we'll adjust from there as we need it. The horn caused some lag there, I think. That's a first. So 3/4 of a mile, let's do the first application now. 5% serve. Well, I want a little bit more, but we'll start with 5%. I'll go ahead and increase it now to 20. Again, I want around 15 for the time being, but you know, we'll take 20. Probably safer anyway to do that. We're going to be in plenty of time. It shouldn't be a problem. So speed is coming off very nicely right now. This is going very smoothly. There's another siding over there. We have access from the second track. It looks like our track didn't actually have access to that, but I assume... No, it's just a down loop. It's just a down loop. So I'm going to take the brakes off for right now. So you can see why it's called a down loop, because you can move over from one track and not from the other, and then vice versa. I'm going to put a heavy brake on now because we need a heavier brake. There we go. We're going to stop in time, so let's ease the brakes a little bit to lower the passenger discomfort. Doors are open. Arrival at Starcross down platform. Leaving Starcross down platform, we are on our way next to Dawlish Warren. And there is still a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on the Dawlish Warren segments. That has not changed between the 50s and today. That segment is still a slow section of track that you have to drive along, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and continue along to Dawlish Warren. We can go about 25 for right now, but I think around 50 or so we're going to have to start easing the throttle back as we approach Dawlish Warren. Those signals are for the other track. Even though they look like they're on our side for our track, they are aiming the other direction. So there is another train coming that's going to be following those signals, how I'm reading that. That was our signal, I believe. Yeah, I can see the 25 coming up now, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave the throttle idle for right now. That seems to be fine. We got about 2.5 minutes to make our stop, so leaving it idle for a moment is a good idea, I think. We're going to go ahead and apply the brake application as we get closer to the 25 limit. So let's do the first app, first app right now. We're just not doing much, so I'm going to put a 15% service application in, just slower our speed a little bit. Not too much for the time being, just a little bit so we have more control over when we get to the 25. We might be getting a little too close for my liking here, so I might increase that just slightly at this point. In fact, I will increase it just slightly at 25. You see the HUD has zoomed in, so we are going to have a better view of approaching 25, a better idea where we need to bring the speed down. I think I'm going to get down in time, but I might need a slight burst. No, we are going to get down in time. We should be fine. In fact, plenty of time. I'm going to release it for a moment. Now I'm going to reapply. And there we are. So I'm going to leave it just coasting right here. And that's going to take us into Dawlish Warren, where we will be able to do a full stop within the platform, because we're already going to be going so slow. We don't need to stop before the platform, or slow down further before the platform. In fact, I'll do a slight throttle burst to bring us up to the platform, because I am confident in my train's stopping ability inside the platform. At this point, initial application, now a stronger one. I'm going to go ahead and release it now because I'm coming off a little too quickly at this point. And now further brakes. I'm just kind of easing it off gently here. And this is where I want to stop. Arrival at Dawlish Warren. And again, I'm going to stay with you because we do have a train going through here. I'm going to show you the train so you can see what it is coming to a stop. All the old classic coaches from the 50s. If that train hadn't already been here, I would have shown it coming in as a screenshot, but we'll just leave it. There you go. We're not going to have time to do anything before we have to get going again. So notice that bathing is dangerous when the red flag is flying. I don't see a red flag, do you? I guess bathing is okay right now. And leaving Dawlish Warren, we're heading next to Dawlish. Now you may notice I start at a low speed throttle setting when I first get going. That's because it is raining. I don't want to go straight to a full throttle and cause a potential wheel slip. So I am trying to minimize the throttle setting, especially in this section because we only can go to 25 right now anyway. So I'm actually idling the throttle a little under 25. I meant to get up to 25, so we're going to try to increase it a little bit further now. Once our train is fully off of the platform area and we're actually in the 70 and past the 70, we can go ahead and speed up to 70. All the signals from the other direction are not allowing anyone through right now. We can actually go 70 now according to the sign. So looks like there's a little bit of an inaccuracy in the HUD on this one. So if you're doing this one, you can go 70 as soon as you come off the curb. And that makes sense because a train going through would not slow to 25 while we're on the main track. So that does make perfect sense. Just a HUD inaccuracy. You don't necessarily want to trust what you see on the HUD. Just keep an eye on the speed that you see below, the top speed you see below your speed. That will tell you what you're allowed to go. That was an interesting leg spike. Now there is one exception to the rule. When you know a train is supposed to follow certain rules, sometimes there may be something on the route itself that is not set correctly. For example, the water trail we passed earlier, it is set for 75 miles per hour, but if you're driving a train that is limited to 35 miles per hour and the HUD doesn't tell you to go to 75, you probably don't want to go to 75. And that will come into play in the next scenario. You're going to see that. That'll be very evident to you in the next scenario. So we need to slow down for the station. Let's go ahead and start doing that now, because I did not slow down in time. So I'm going to do a harder application than I normally might at this stage. We're still going to be down to 20 before the station, so I am going to be releasing it before we get down to there. In fact, this is a good enough spot to release for right now. I'm going to coast into the station. Yeah, 35 is good for coasting to about a 10th out. And as we see the station approaching here, I'm going to go ahead and put the brakes on again right now. And I have a lot of space to make this stop, so I actually don't need to brake completely. I'm going to get a little further in because just the other platform is there. It kind of makes sense to try to be lined up with the other platform too. So I'm going to go ahead and just come all the way in. That should do for our brake application. I'm going to ease the brakes off in a moment to reduce the any discomfort. And I need to actually come to a full stop. Stop, please. Thank you. Arrival at Dawlish Town platform. Going to apply further brakes so we don't move. Leaving Dawlish. our next stop is Teignmouth. As you can see by the points, we have achieved now half of the points available to us in this scenario. That means that we are going to be at the halfway point of our journey, as we are right now. And you can see that we are just over 500 points. That means that there's 1,008 points available in this scenario. So even if there was a slight speeding penalty somewhere, we're still good to go. We're coming up on the various tunnels that are on this room. We're going to move up to 100% throttle now. We're safe to do that. So the first tunnel we're coming up on here is the Kenaway Tunnel. For those who have not been seeing our videos, my videos to this point, this is the Kenaway Tunnel. Followed by the Paignton Tunnel, which is coming up here. And one of my cut segments that was actually rocks in front of it, which I didn't understand at all. Next is the Fillet Tunnel, followed by the Clerks Tunnel, both very short tunnels. This is Fillets, this is Clerks. And then the only one I actually have memorized, the last one and the longest one, is the Parsons Tunnel. Actually, I think I remember the Fillets one too, but the Parsons Tunnel. I've idled the throttle because I came into 60 very, very quickly there, so I've gone ahead and made sure I don't speed over, and throttle is completely idle at this point. Here's the Parsons Tunnel. Turn the wipers off for a second because I'm actually in the tunnel. No point running them for a second. And let's turn back on now. You see the station coming up here. I could go to 75 in a moment, but there's probably not much point to. I might be able to get a slight gain in the speed, if anything, but not much. We're literally a mile out from our stop at Teignmouth. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and zero the throttle now. There's no real reason to increase. Let's just leave it there, because we have a 60 coming up anyway. We're going to have to be below it before we get to that sign. So, small brake application once again. We're just going to keep it a minimal application. We will add to it as we get closer to the station, as per usual. So 0.5 of a mile out, I will increase that to, okay, 15. It works. Bingo. Okay, I'm coming off a little too quickly, so I'm going to release the brakes for a moment. We have lots of time to make the stop. I could slow down all the way if I wanted to. I just don't really want to. So we're going to apply the brakes again. We're now 1/10 of a mile out, but I have dropped to 30, and that's really what I want to enter the station at. So I'm going to keep the brakes off for a moment, and as we enter the platform, I'm going to apply the brakes again. This station is definitely more than big enough for our train here, so I'm going to go ahead and brake enough here so we can come to a stop quickly when we want to, but I'm going to get ourselves far enough in front of the building that all the passengers can just get off under the canopy here if I can. So we're going to get under the bridge right now. Going to move forward just a wee bit here. So where I am right now, I'm going to try to let everyone off around this point. The last car might not get there. So I'm going to let everyone off under this canopy area here. That'll do nicely. Not quite under, but we'll take it. Arrival at Teignmouth. Leaving the Teignmouth platform, we are now on our way next to Newton Abbot. Newton Abbot is the last station before the Western Main Lines itself exits towards Plymouth, so we're going to be leading onto our own little branch at that point, heading down to Paignton and Kingskerwell. Of course, our service today will stop at Paignton. I am at 100% throttle, so I'm just trying to let the train get up to speed here. We're not going to get to 60 by the time we cross the 75, I believe. It'll be very close. We might actually have to cut it back now that I'm thinking about it. So it looks like I may have to actually cut the speed off after all. I'm going to ease the throttle back so we can just coast into it. Hopefully without having to cut it off again. Looks like I might fail at that challenge. And I'm going to cut it off again now. And now I can increase again. So we are going to continue up to 75 at this time. We did cross over the River Teignmouth. We are also going by Hackney Yard. You may remember me mentioning the previous scenario on this version of the route that I didn't know where Hackney Yard was when I was going over the scenarios. Well, Hackney Yard is in this area, before Teignmouth. Or after Teignmouth. Before coming from the other direction, obviously. I'm going to ease off throttle again because we are getting close to our ultimate limit of 75. By this point, it's a little negligible, so I don't mind easing the throttle off at this point. The difference between 73 and 74 is minimal compared to the difference between 13 and 14. It's a lot more of a drag on your timing, so this is a minimal difference at this point. I'm just going to let it ease up to 75 and then I will throttle. So I've taken the throttle down to idle, and we are going to have to brake for the 60 coming up. That is actually a couple minutes before Newton Abbot, so this is not preparing for the stop. We're going to actually have to meet the 60 speed limit. The speed is dropping a little bit on its own, but I am going to have to help that in a moment. And I will do so. So we're going to put a small brake application. Now you can see a 45 coming up as well. That is before Newton Abbot. So I've lowered the speed a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and keep coasting for right now because that was actually very quickly done. And I don't want the speed down to 60 yet. About a quarter of a mile is probably enough at that point. So here we are. We're going to put the brakes on again. And actually, I was going down so much that I didn't even need to do that. We're going to get another small application on. Another small application. We are under 60 in time. 60.5 is sufficient for a 60. We are going to have to brake further to 45, so we're going to keep an eye on that. There are a number of signals coming up for different yard passages, so each signal comes for a different yard access. It's not very likely you're going to find a red in the middle of those, but you never know. There could be a train on a block, so you have to pay attention. But at 60, it's going to be kind of hard to come to a stop if you didn't already see a sign telling you to do so. So we're going to brake for the 45 now. And that's good enough for now. I'm going to lower it further. So we are passing, we did pass Hackney Yard at one point. Okay, we're going to brake further now because we are going to get ready to stop at the station. So I'm down in the 40 area now for the 45. That's fine because the station is coming up. The Heathfield branch, by the way, joined us from the right. It is closed to passengers today, but it did have a it does have a station on our DLC, and I'm not sure if there's any scenarios that use that station as a starting point. to head to Kingswell or something like that. But it is usable. It is a station. I don't know what the scenery is like up there either. There are 2 branches from there that go towards other locations that, again, aren't simulated on this DLC, and again, they're close to pastures today, so they don't show on the line today at all. We're going to go ahead and do a massive break application now. That is needed at this point. We are fully in the platform, so let's just try to get everyone under the roof here. We are a little early, but that is fine. So, arrival at Newton Abbot. Departing from Newton Abbot, our next stop is Kingskerwell. Kingskerwell. They're going to stop at the down platform, and this is again going to be the first time we're making a stop at this station. This is the other stop that, or the other station that was proposed for reopening along with Exminster. And in the current route, it actually shows as a disused station, whereas you don't really see Exminster in the other route at all. But this station does appear as a disused station in the route. So this station is ripe for reopening whenever they want to reopen it. But right now, passengers are not able to stop there. Or board there, or anything else. You would think they would leave the station as a departing stop for passengers, as a kind of a request stop, but I guess the trains aren't set up for request stopping. So not much you can do about that. So I'm going to go ahead and out of the throttle for a moment because we are coming into a 45. We have to slow down for that. So I've left the throttle at the speed at 50 for right now. The speed is going to drop off a little as we go. You see that we're now in a 4-line arrangement. Western Main Lines is on the right. We're going to stay on the left. So a slight brake application to make sure we fall under the speed. Not quite there, so just another tiny brake application to get us under. You notice that the signals were saying green on the left and red on the right. Basically saying we're going over here. And there's Western Main Lines. You can still branch off from here into Western Main Lines, but now we are ultimately on our branch at this point. There's a water tower or something, by the way. And we are going to now hit a 50, and we're going to be able to speed up again. So I've started a preliminary gain here, and now let's go ahead and do a further gain. Now notice I did not go to 100% throttle. There's no need to go to 100% because we would have to cut it back right away. So I'm just kind of heading down a more gradual increase so we don't accidentally break the speed limit. I'm going to ease it off immediately now. I'm going to out of the throttle again at this stage. By the way, where we just crossed, the Aller Tunnel is there today, and that is because the South Devon Expressway goes over top. So the Aller Tunnel actually takes the railway right where the line disengages, where Western Main Lines cuts off. The Aller Tunnel is right there on our branch. But on this DLC, naturally, it didn't exist. In fact, it was not built until 2015. And the Riviera Line DLC was from 2014. So you can see that we don't have a representation of that. Now, I have yet to drive on the Western Main Lines or on any other DLC like the Birkenhauts, so I don't know if the Aller Tunnel is represented in Train Simulator or not at this stage. I came a little closer to the station than I wanted to before hitting the brakes, so I actually had to put a larger brake application than I wanted to, and I still came off a little too nicely at that point. So we're going to go ahead and just coast in at this stage. We have a full minute to stop anyway. And here is our first stop coming up at Kingskerwell down platform. So I'm going to go ahead and apply further brakes at this stage as we fully enter the platform. We can come to a stop any point at any time once we are in the platform. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a larger application on now. Got to cut it back down to about 15%. And now I'll apply a full brake because we are stopped. So arrival for the first time at Kingskerwell down platform. Leaving Kingskerwell down platform. You notice I put a small throttle application on before I release the brakes because we are on a 1 in 110 gradient. That is enough gradient, even with some brakes applied, that your train can move backwards in this station. So you have to be careful leaving this platform in this direction, as you could roll backwards at about half a mile per hour, and that could be enough to count as the train moving and abort your scenario. So if it goes about a tenth of a mile or two, it won't matter too much as long as you catch it. But if it goes faster than that, you're going to get tagged. You could possibly get tagged. So you don't want that to happen. Because we are on the uphill, it is actually difficult for us to get up to speed. I'm going to theorize this was one of the reasons that station was closed, because of the gradient on the station. I don't know if today they will actually do anything, if they reopen the station, whether they would actually smooth out the gradient, but that would be some extra work they would have to do, and they would have to probably close the track to do that. So I'm guessing they would just have to find a way to allow it to remain as it is. Nowadays, I think they try to smooth out the stations. Like you find a lot of stations are smoothed out, is what I meant to say, but there are a few that are not. So we are coming to the end of our 50 speed limit area here, so I'm going to idle the throttle right now, even though we're not quite at 50 yet, because we are going to have to slow down for this 35 in a moment, so we might as well just let the speed ease down on the uphill as much as we can to enter the 35. We might actually be down to 35 by the time we reach it, without any brake applications. Which was not what I expected. I'm going to put a small throttle application on to maintain a little speed into that area. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that off now. Once again, I'm going to do that because I think we're still coming off a little too quickly. Okay, let's take it off now and see how we decrease. Yep, reapplying the throttle was a good estimate on my part. Looks like we're going to get down there just in time. And we cross into the signpost going at a 34.8, so there you go. Going to reapply the throttle to get us back up closer to 35 and a little over. And then I'm going to go ahead and idle the throttle at 11% so that we can try to coast. We're going to be coming up to the downhill, so I'm going to actually remove the throttle now, because I have to prepare to hit the brakes on this downhill, and we're going to be dealing with these brakes as we enter the station, because this downhill is going to go straight into Torre platform, which is our next platform. Not sure if I mentioned that, but there it is. You can see it coming up. We are about a mile away from that. The gradient is now picking up our train, so we are on a 1 in 111 gradient at this time. And that is increasing our speed. So I'm going to put a small brake application on, just a first app. That's going to lower, first application, that's going to lower us down to 34. I will release that and go to a running brake setting. So I can quickly move into the next, so I can quickly reapply as needed, like now. So first application again, going to leave it in a running setting. Nope, going to keep it first. Actually, service 10%, why not? Let's play bingo, shall we? Let's play bingo. You can see I'm just kind of coasting the brakes between 33 and 35, and that's ideal at this point. So I'm going to apply the brakes again. Get release them one more time, and then I'm going to go ahead and start braking for the station at that point, because we are going to need a brake for the station. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and keep the 10% brake application at this time. I'm going to increase that further as we enter the platform. We may be down to about 25 at this point as we enter the platform. Actually, I'm coming down too quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and release the brakes again for a moment and gain speed again as we come into Torre. These sidings are not here today. All these sidings, I think, are lifted today. So there's not really that much going on here at this point, at this stage in the station's history. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the brake application now because this is a short platform. So we do have to come to a stop in a fairly expeditious period of time. I'm going to release it now because I want to try and get to the end of the platform if I can. And further applying the brakes at this point to stop as we hit the signal here. And that's the ideal stopping spot. Arrival at Torre down platform. Leaving Torre. Our next stop is Torquay, and it's only about 8/10 of a mile away from us, so we're not going to take very long to get there. We have to be there by 2 minutes from now. So because we're only dealing with a 35 mile per hour speed limit, I'm going to go ahead and get ourselves up to about 30. But because we're on a downhill, there's no reason to go any higher than that at this time because we're going to pick up speed as we go. So I'm actually stopping about 29. That's fine. I can take that because we're still going to gain speed on this downhill. 1 in 55. Very, very steep downhill. And I think it goes right into the station at Torquay. So I'm going to put a small brake application on just to see what happens. And we're not losing very many brakes. So I'm going to go back to first application. We're gaining speed on the first application. So I'm going to keep a 5% service application on at this time. That's actually not doing it. So I'm going to put a heavier application on. I'm going to just kind of fiddle with it to try to find the right optimal spot to come down this hill at. That is not it. So we're going to pull it off. 30% is still gaining. 45 is still gaining. Really? Okay, I'm going to have to slam those brakes. 70% brake application. This 1 in 55 is steep, but we're going to have to ease the brakes off as we enter the station because otherwise we will literally come to a full stop a little early. So we have to watch the brakes coming in. So the gradient is shallowing out. Going to ease the brakes off now because we are now on flat ground at the front of the train, almost flat ground, fairly flat ground. And we're going to go ahead and hit the brakes further before we get to the end of the platform. This is probably a good point to do it, so we're going to do it right now. We are fully in the platform, so we're going to get stopped and get the doors open ASAP. Nope, stop. Stop, please. Thank you very much. If you get down there, I'll be very happy. Thank you very much. Arrival at Torquay platform, and that was a little unexpected in terms of the braking. So there you go. Be careful releasing the brake there. Leaving Torquay, our next and final stop is Paignton. We are under a 35 mile per hour speed limit, and the portion of track going into Paignton you may remember from previously or from the run from Kingskerwell. This is kind of like an up and down section of track. There's several changes in the gradient as you go along. You can actually see an uphill gradient coming up here and then a downhill right after it as you look along the HUD at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to leave the throttle, knowing we're coming to an uphill, I'm going to leave the throttle at idle at 35% as normal because we can't just speed into that to maintain 35. So I'll take 34.6, that's fine. It'll decrease slightly, but as I get to the uphill, I'm going to keep it 11% throttle applied and see how that affects the speed. Let's increase it now because I'm down at 34. Train coming along. All the trains on the scenarios, by the way, are from the Western Hydraulics Pack. So you're going to see Class 52s, 42s, and 35s dotted around the scenarios here. We're on that uphill gradient now, so I'm going to apply a 22% throttle, which is not enough. I have to increase that to 44, which is now enough. We're slowly gaining speed. I will ease that off as we get to the top of the hill. This is a 1 in 65 gradient. As I see the gradient shallow out, I will zero the throttle again. 1 in 71 at this time. And actually I'm now at top speed, so I need to ease off anyway. And the gradient is shallowing out. I'm going to remove the throttle completely at this stage. We're now on a 1 in 415, which I believe is a downhill. Could still be an uphill, but I believe it's a downhill because we are coming into a downhill gradient. We are losing speed. We're at 1 in 232 now, so getting slightly more steep. It is definitely a down... Oh, that might have been still an uphill gradient. And we're now coming for sure to a downhill gradient, which is going to help us gain speed. 1 in 184. It's actually not really gaining speed at all. We're good for our stop anyway, but I expected we would be gaining some speed on this part of the gradient. We are not, so I'm going to put a small application of speed on just to see what happens. And sure enough, we are now gaining a little speed, but this is not a steep enough gradient to gain speed, it looks like. So I'm going to leave ourselves at 34. I will throttle again and see what happens. But the gradient is getting steeper, so we are now going to gain speed. In fact, I can see it right there. We were gaining speed for a moment. So I put a small brake application on. This gradient is now shallowing out again. In fact, it is a flat gradient. We are coming to an uphill, so I'm going to get ourselves back to 35. I'm going to lose speed on this uphill, and then as we hit the downhill, I'm going to have to actually hit the brakes for the station anyway. In fact, I might do that now after we just passed the signal. So I'm going to start hitting the brakes a little bit right now, since we are coming to a downhill gradient anyway. I'm going to go ahead and release those now. This 1 in 81 is going to gain us a little speed, but that's fine, because we can come in at 30 if we want to. That is perfectly fine. And since we're now at 32, I'm going to reapply that brake. And now I'm going to apply a little bit more as we get in the station at a slightly slower speed. We're losing speed nicely coming in the station. I want to stop in front of the building for all the passengers. We can stop anytime now and the scenario's over, and we will be successful, but let's try to stop for the passengers if we can. I'm going to put a small speed back on for a moment to get to the building on our HUD, because that's technically the ideal stopping point. And I'm going to stop now. Stop fully, please. Thank you very much. Doors are open. Arrival at Paignton, and let's look at the train as we finish. So that was a fairly benign scenario, wasn't it? Not too bad at all. I mean, we've done this run before with a Class 143 whose doors didn't want to work properly sometimes. But this train, the doors have no problems, and you can go right away. So it's actually more fun, because I don't have to reset the scenario every time I want to get going again. So there we go. Scenario is over. Class 35 has been introduced, and I hope you enjoyed that Class 35 run. Well done, driver. Those passengers will be pleased. There is an achievement with this scenario. I've already completed the scenario once, so you're not going to see that achievement. So I'm just going to go ahead and say at this point, have a wonderful day, evening, or night, whatever it is you're part of the world. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time for a Class 52 run. I want to finish off this Western Hydraulics pack, and the logical reason for that is because I want to be able to drive these trains in custom scenarios without having to reintroduce them. I can just refer back to this for introducing them. So I'm going to take advantage of the opportunity to get these all done, and then that's 3 trains I can now drive in custom scenarios once I do that. So I'll see you next time to finish this off with the Class 52, a freight run from Hackney Yard to, it says Exeter, but it's actually to Exminster. So a little typo in the information. You'll see that next time. I'm Cyclone. Have a wonderful day, evening, or night once again. See you then. Bye-bye.